Mother said she was a time traveler who came to redeem father, but her only special ability was brute strength, so she worked as a butcher in the village and carried coffins for wealthy families. She exchanged these tasks for points with the system, earning father the scholarly title. But when father became the Grand Chancellor, he had a child with my widowed aunt. He said, "It's not easy for aunt to be a widow," and he wanted to inherit both family lines, making aunt and mother equal wives. That day, mother took off her jacket still stained with pig's blood and silently looked at father for a long time. Father slowly lowered his head, but in the end, he did not change his mind. That late night, mother held me as we slept. I heard her whispering to the large figure in the air, "System, I want to go home." I abruptly opened my eyes and tightly gripped the hem of mother's clothes. "Mother, where are you going? Can you take Changla with you?" Mother held me tightly and looked at the big guy in the sky. "I'll use all my points to exchange for my daughter to come with me." The big guy asked her, "If all the points are cleared, the male lead will lose everything he gained. Shouldn't we leave at least some initial points?" Mother shook her head. "No, he doesn't deserve it." Hello, everyone, welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. When father brought aunt into the mansion, I was accompanying my mother on our way back from the butcher shop. At the slaughterhouse, my mother worked alongside a group of burly men, slaughtering pigs and sheep. Then, at Butcher Wu's shop, she helped cut and sell the meat. It wasn't until evening that she finally took the full tale of silver she had earned and left with me. Butcher Wu saw us out, rubbing his hands together and stealing shy glances at my mother. "What a capable woman. What lucky man will have the fortune to marry you in the future?" My mother has always been straightforward and can take a joke. Hearing this, he stopped in his tracks. She looked seriously and discontentedly at Butcher Wu and said, "I have a husband. My husband is the best man in the capital. This is our daughter. Can't you see?" As she spoke, she tightened her grip on my hand. I immediately raised my head high. Just like mother, I glared angrily at the fat-faced man. The Butcher Wu flushed red in an instant. I saw you always alone with a child, so I thought your husband." Mother ignored him, grabbed my hand, and turned to leave. We walked through the long street market, heading toward the Prime Minister's residence. Mother earned more than usual today, but she wasn't happy and remained silent the whole time. As we passed by the street stalls, a vendor called out to her, "Madam, buy a sachet for your family, it brings peace and safety." Mother didn't believe in such things, but the vendor added, "You can also have characters embroidered on the sachet." Mother still paused in her steps. The sachet was quite expensive, inlaid with jade, costing a full half-tael of silver. But mother gritted her teeth and bought one anyway, having her name embroidered on the spot. As she walked back home, a smile appeared on her face. She smiled with curved eyes and said to me, "I'll have your father put it on as soon as we get back." Father is now the Grand Chancellor, yet he has never introduced her to outsiders. Thus, in this entire capital city, no one knew that she, a butcher who slaughtered pigs, was the wife of the Prime Minister. Mother hoped that others would at least know her name. The moonlight in the street market was like water. Mother laughed, and I laughed along with her. I was overjoyed, looking forward to going home to see father wearing the sachet. Father was exceptionally handsome, tall and dashing. Mother said that he looked good in anything he wore, but when we hurried to the outside of the Prime Minister's residence, then I saw a golden silk sedan chair stopped outside the mansion gate. My father, still in his official robes, hurriedly stepped out of the sedan chair. He then turned back and carefully lifted the sedan curtain. His broad palm reached inside, and a slender, fair hand rested upon his arm. The shy and timid young woman descended from the sedan chair, leaning on his arm. Along with her came a little girl, about 3 years old. The night was somewhat dim. It took me a long moment to recognize them. It was over a year ago when aunt, along with her child, was driven out of the estate by mother. Father supported aunt with one hand and held the child's hand with the other, leading them into the estate. Mother grabbed my hand and suddenly tightened her grip, squeezing it until it hurt. I let out a low cry, and only then did she snap back to reality. Immediately releasing my hand, even the sachet that cost half a tael of silver fell to the ground. I tilted my head and saw her somewhat ashen face. She stared fixedly at father and aunt. Suddenly, she pulled open the cloth bag hanging at her waist. She pulled out the butcher knife she always carried with her whenever she went to the slaughterhouse. Without another word, she charged toward the person about to step through the mansion gate, fierce and imposing. She roared just as she would in the slaughterhouse, "Let's see who dares let her in today." Father instantly halted his steps. He turned around and looked at Mother, who was gripping a butcher knife and charging toward him furiously, his handsome brows furrowed, and a look of disgust surfaced in his dark eyes. He quickly reached out to shield Aunt and her child, Fu Yanga, as if my mother would really go mad and stab them. Auntie hasn't been right in the head since Uncle passed away. She saw my mother holding a knife, with bloodstains on her coarse cloth jacket. Her face was full of terror as she sobbed quietly, clutching Fu Yanga. She kept shrinking back into my father's embrace. Fu Yanga clung tightly to my father's waist, crying out urgently, "Father, father, quickly drive this madwoman away." Mother grew even angrier. Her hand holding the knife trembled as she raised it, pointing the tip at her aunt and Fu Yanga. "Get out, both of you, get out." Fu Yanga still clung tightly to my father, while the aunt also shrank into his embrace. Mother then turned the tip of the knife toward father. "Fu Rongsha, make them get lost, either that, or I'll cut ties with you and Changle for good." When Mother gets angry, I get angry too. I imitated the way Mother had done before. Placing her hands on her hips, she stomped over with a sullen, puffed-up expression, suddenly remembering something. I turned back to pick up the sachet from the ground and quietly tucked it into my sleeve. It cost a full half-tael of silver. Mother would have to slaughter many pigs and sheep to earn that much. I rushed over again, standing by Mother's side to back her up. I widened my eyes and glared at Aunt and Fu Yanga, saying, "Didn't you hear my mother tell you to get lost?" Fu Yanga's lips trembled, her eyes full of grievance. And her tears fell even more heavily. Father often said she was fair and delicate, looking just like a young lady from a wealthy family, unlike me, who was always covered in dust and grime, like a little beggar from the streets. But I couldn't stand Fu Yanga the most. When I was her age, I've long been able to help my mother guard the butcher shop, and I've long stopped crying over trivial matters. Impatiently, I took another step closer to them, puffing out my chest as I declared, "What's there to cry about? Hurry up and leave with your mother." Before I could finish my sentence, my father angrily cut me off. "Enough, Shentang, look at yourself, and then look at the fine daughter you've raised, not a single trace of the dignity befitting the Prime Minister's wife and daughter." His eyes were filled with disappointment and shame. "It seems that my mother and I are the greatest shame to him." The high and mighty Grand Chancellor, my mother gripped the knife, looked at him, and laughed bitterly. "Grand Chancellor, Fu Rongsha, if it weren't for me, you'd still be a woodcutter in the mountains. You're not even fit to be a scholar, let alone a prime minister." Father, now a high-ranking official, is constantly flattered and praised, and he can't stand being looked down upon. His face quickly turned red and then pale, his voice filled with rage. "I've achieved what I have today through my own knowledge and abilities. You truly possess such great capabilities. Why not support that butcher Wu who's been making eyes at you, and make him a chancellor too?" Mother stared at him in astonishment, after a long pause, as if she had finally understood something. "You're following me." Father's phoenix eyes held a scrutinizing gaze as he sneered repeatedly. "If you were upright in your actions, why would you fear being followed?" Mother looked at him, watching on. He suddenly laughed again. "Then I'll try another day, having Butcher Wu go study." Father's face turned completely dark. Without further hesitation, he directly had the household steward lead Aunt and Fu Yanga inside. When he looked at his mother again, only coldness remained in his eyes. "Shentang, I'll be straight with you, Fu Yanga, she is my flesh and blood. I plan to marry Jiao Jiao into the family, so I can properly take care of her on behalf of my deceased brother. From now on, she will be your equal wife." Mother's face, flushed red with anger, instantly froze upon hearing those words. She remained motionless for a long time, not uttering a single word. She just stared blankly at Father, as if suddenly unable to process what had happened. Under her gaze, Father's eyes began to drift. He seemed to grow somewhat uneasy, lowering his gaze. He then glanced sideways, looking elsewhere, his eyes wandering about, his broad hand hanging at his side, the knuckles stiffly curled. A wind rose in the night street, silently sweeping up the withered yellow leaves of the locust trees from the ground. I couldn't quite understand what they were saying, I felt a bit cold, and because of Mother's unusual silence, I grew anxious. I leaned closer to Mother and hugged her. It took a long time before Mother raised her hand and patted my head. I could feel her hand trembling as it touched the top of my head. I raised my head. I saw her slowly, very slowly, nod and say, "Good, very good." Father seemed to have said something very harsh, yet, the anger on Mother's face faded, and she appeared unusually calm instead. I used to sneak off to the tea house to listen to storytelling. The storyteller would recount those deeply moving love stories and sigh, saying, "The young lady's heart had died, so she neither cried nor made a fuss." I thought, at this moment, Mother was just like what the storyteller had described. Mother slowly placed the butcher knife in her hand back into the cloth bag. Then, holding my hand, she walked past Father. He walked inside without saying another word. Father, who had never been one to speak first, suddenly called out from behind us with a hint of urgency. At that time, Rome Jing had just left. Zhao Zhao's mind wasn't right, and I had drunk too much. It was an accident. Mother abruptly turned to look at him, her emotions spiraling out of control, eyes wide with fury. Enough, her eyes bloodshot. She could no longer maintain her composure. Brandishing a butcher knife as she lunged forward, "You betrayed me. Who wants to hear your excuses? If you truly feel ashamed, then go die." For a moment, I was utterly terrified, yet instinctively, I didn't want to stop Mother. I just stood frozen in place, clenching my hands tightly. The knife that could slice through flesh like mud swung over, yet Father didn't dodge. The blade slashed a long, vicious wound on Father's arm, and blood instantly gushed out. Father's eyes turned red. But he never moved. The nanny, Granny Zheng, and the maids in the mansion screamed and rushed over to intervene. "How could you be so cruel, madam? How could you be so ruthless?" But I knew very well that Mother hadn't been ruthless at all when she worked at the slaughterhouse. This butcher knife could easily slice off a plump pig's leg with a single stroke. She still couldn't bear to let go. That's why Father only had this one scar on his hand. Everyone in the household rushed over. Distressed by Father's injury, scolding Mother for having lost her mind, only I, trembling, ran over and hugged the hand Mother had used to hold the knife, anxiously asking her, "Mother, does your hand hurt?" I saw her hand gripping the knife, her fingers turning white. Mother was like a brave and fearless warrior. She battled Aunt and Fu Yanger, and then she battled Father. He held his head high, without even a hint of redness in his eyes, yet she lowered her gaze and asked me if my hand hurt. But then she suddenly cried, a single tear falling onto the back of my hand. She quickly turned her back to Father and swiftly wiped away her tears. He had returned to being that cold-faced warrior. I watched her cry and felt her profound sorrow as if it were my own. It was as if her grief had funneled directly into my heart. I began to weep softly. Mother picked me up, ignoring the noisy crowd who were all worried about Father, and carried me back to our bedroom, late at night. As I nestled in her arms, I faintly heard her speaking in a daze. I opened my eyes and saw the big guy floating in midair, the one I hadn't seen in a long time. Mother spoke to the big guy, her voice soft and lonely. "System, I've made up my mind. I want to go home." I had a strong premonition that Mother was about to leave me. I opened my eyes in panic, no longer able to pretend to be asleep. I reached out and desperately grabbed the hem of Mother's clothes. "It seems that as long as I do this, she won't be able to leave me." I trembled with fear and asked, "Mother, where are you going? Can you take Changla with you? Changla will be good and will listen to everything you say." The more I spoke, the more I wanted to cry. And the more I spoke, the more afraid I became. I always felt that in the next moment, she would disappear without a trace. Father said I looked like a little beggar. Now he has brought in my aunt, and even said that Fu Yanger is his child. Mother is gone. No one will ever love me again. I held on to Mother tightly. Sobbing uncontrollably, Mother gazed out at the night outside the window. After a long while, she let out a soft sigh. "Changle, your mother is returning to another world. There will no longer be your father. There will be no more Dajwang to play with you, no more Prime Minister's residence, nor your favorite four-joy meatballs." Dajwang was the little beggar that Butcher Wu picked up on the roadside. He raised him as his own son. I often went to the slaughterhouse or the butcher shop with my mother. Dajwang always loved playing with me the most. Butcher Wu's four-joy meatballs, made with fresh meat, are the most delicious in the entire capital. I was a bit reluctant to part with Dajwang, and also a bit reluctant to give up the 4-joy meatballs, and it seemed there was just a little bit of reluctance to leave father, but after only a brief moment of hesitation, I made up my mind. I held on to mother tightly and said, I only want mother. Even if mother takes Changle and we truly become little beggars, as long as mother is here, Changle will be happy. Mother's face looked somewhat sorrowful, yet I managed to make her laugh. She held me tightly, gently stroking my hair. After a long while, she finally sighed and said to the big guy, I want to use all my points to take my daughter with me. The large figure in the sky flickered a few times, and then that strange voice sounded again. Host, if all the points are cleared, everything the male lead has gained will also be lost. Have you considered leaving 100 initial points? That way, it would be enough for you to take your daughter away. Mother looked out into the pitch-black night. After a long while, she covered my ears and answered softly, but I was close enough to faintly make out her words. She said, we won't keep it, he doesn't deserve it. She's probably afraid that if I hear it, I'll be sad, but I wouldn't be sad at all. It was father himself who once said we should be like the world mother used to live in, where mother and he would be loyal only to each other, two people devoted for a lifetime. But now, he wants to marry my aunt, and they even have a child together. Mother left father because father made a mistake. I'm not sad, but as I leaned into mother's embrace, my eyes still felt a little sore. I quietly blinked, swallowing back the sting. The candle flame was extinguished. In my drowsy state, I heard mother softly murmuring, Changle, oh Changle, why are people's hearts always so fickle? He once said he would go through fire and water for me. Now, the mountain of knives hasn't come, and the sea of fire hasn't arrived yet. I nuzzled in mother's arms and answered vaguely, Changle's heart will never change. Changle will always love mother the most. Mother chuckled softly above my head. Silly child, I'm not silly at all, I know so much. Father has now become a high official. But mother still refuses to take it easy. She insists on continuing to work as a butcher, carrying coffins, earning money in ways that are considered improper. Mother is not asking for trouble. She can only use this to exchange with the big guy, so that father can continue to live well. She said this is a mission. Over the years, I have heard her talking quietly with the big guy at night many times. My father, who had failed to even pass the imperial examination at the county level, was deeply frustrated and worked as a woodcutter in a small village. A day of hard work cutting a load of firewood earned him only 10 copper coins. He had to cut 100 loads just to exchange for 1 tael of silver, and to travel to the capital for the imperial examination, he needed at least several dozen taels of silver for travel expenses. Mother was sent to him by the big man when he was at his lowest point. She found father in the mountains and said she was lost. Father then gave mother the steamed bun he had kept in his embrace all day. Unable to bring himself to eat it, mother said she was an orphan and had no home. Father was also an orphan, with only a sickly younger brother. Even though he was so poor he could hardly make ends meet, he still took mother in. Later, mother helped him carry firewood. She easily hoisted a bundle of firewood onto one shoulder and walked down the mountain with light, swift steps. Father stared in stunned silence, unable to snap out of it for a long while. Later on, mother's immense strength became famous throughout the surrounding villages. She wasn't afraid of being laughed at. Joining groups of men to slaughter pigs, butcher sheep, and carry coffins, the money she earned wasn't considered respectable, but it was far more than what father made from chopping wood. During the day, father had time to study, and at night, he had money to buy candles. After several months of diligent study, he finally passed the counter-level imperial examination and became a shotsai, a scholar who passed the imperial examination at the county level. He got a job copying books for the county magistrate's family. After working for over a month, he earned 1 tael of silver. On his way back home, he made a stop at a jewelry shop. He spent every last bit of his silver, buying a white jade hairpin for his mother. It was the first piece of jewelry he had ever given her. When he presented it, the tips of his ears were flushed red, and his voice was filled with guilt. Atang, I have no ability. This hairpin doesn't deserve you. If one day I make something of myself, I will surely give you the finest and most expensive hairpin in the capital. Mother laughed at his foolishness, yet her eyes reddened. Some women and girls in the village said that father had been cheated by the jewelry shop. and that the hairpin was clearly not worth a tale of silver. Others remarked that the color was a bit too old-fashioned and didn't suit Mother well. Only Mother smiled so brightly her eyes curved. And she wore the hairpin wherever she went. She refuted their words one by one. This hairpin is the very best. Anything Rongsha picks is the very best. Later, Mother used the work she had done to exchange, bit by bit with the big fellow, for Father's appearance and future prospects. When Father used to work as a woodcutter, he once fell down the mountainside and had his face cut by branches and rocks. Almost half of his face was disfigured, after Mother made a deal with the big fellow. The scars on Father's face gradually and miraculously faded away. He continued taking exams and eventually passed the provincial level imperial examination. He went to the capital for the imperial examination, passed with top honors, and became a high-ranking official. He fulfilled his promise, giving his mother many hairpins and jewelry that were even better and more expensive. Yet the one she wore most often was still that white jade hairpin. She said it was a reminder of her husband's original heart. It was also the reason why she chose to stay even after completing the big guy's task. She said, "Father is worth it." Mother did not misjudge him. It was just that Father had walked too far ahead and, in the end, lost his original intention. I lay on the bed. By the faint moonlight, I saw the white jade hairpin in Mother's hair that she had forgotten to take off again. The hairpin had long been old and worn, yet after all these years, she still couldn't bear to part with it. I quietly reached out and carefully removed the hairpin. She hid it under the pillow again. Otherwise, when she looks in the mirror tomorrow morning, she'll be sad again. Mother has made arrangements with the big guy to take me away on the day of the Lantern Festival after the New Year. That night, she slept very peacefully. The next day, as we were having breakfast, my aunt and Fu Yanga were also present. My aunt had taken my mother's seat, sitting close beside my father. My favorite dish, the 4 happiness meatballs, had been placed right in front of Fu Yanga. My mother and I had just stepped into the front hall, seeing my aunt foolishly clinging to my father's arm and saying, "Husband, I want to eat fish." My mother frowned slightly. In the past, it was precisely because of this that she had driven my aunt and her child to live outside, but this time, she wasn't angry, nor did she scold or drive her aunt away again. Father looked at us as we entered, a flicker of panic in his eyes, and quickly withdrew his hand. He opened his mouth, as if wanting to explain something. He had said it many times before. Auntie is not in her right mind. She's confused and mistook him for her husband. And Fu Yanga, she's still young and doesn't know any better. That's why she called him father. In any case, neither of them did it on purpose. But before Father could speak, Mother had already turned to look at me and said, "Changle, are you hungry?" "I am a little hungry," but Mother said, "If you eat with someone you dislike, even the most delicious food will taste bland." So, I looked at the plate of 4 happiness meatballs and secretly swallowed my saliva. But I still said firmly, "Changle isn't hungry and doesn't want to eat." Mother then held my hand tightly and looked coldly at Father, saying, "I came here to tell you something. I've packed up my and Changle's things. We'll be moving out from now on." Father's face instantly turned cold as he threw down his chopsticks and said, "Why must you make such a scene? Jiao Jiao and Yanga will be living alone in the outside residence. I only brought them over because I was bullied by street thugs yesterday. If you're unhappy about me marrying her, you can just say it outright. No need to be like this." Mother's eyes were filled with nothing but disgust as she impatiently cut off Father's words. "Why should I be unhappy? It is only natural for the Grand Chancellor to have multiple wives and concubines. Should Changla and I not move out first, must we really stay to drink your wedding toast together?" Father's face flushed red with anger. He could never win an argument with Mother. After opening and closing his mouth several times, all he managed to say was, "Where? Where would you even go if you moved out?" Mother said coldly, "Butcher Wu has found me a house, so there's no need for you to worry." She took my hand and turned to leave. Behind him, Father's face was ashen with rage. He let out a series of cold sneers. "Fine, fine. I will marry Jiao Jiao on the Lantern Festival after the New Year, and you better not come to make a scene." I wanted to say what a coincidence. The day my mother and I were leaving was also the Lantern Festival. But I was afraid Mother would be unhappy, so I still didn't speak up. This time, Mother didn't reply to Father with a single word. She took me, went back to the bedroom to get our bundles, and strode out of the Prime Minister's residence. Father threw down his bowl and chopsticks and chased after us, catching up just outside the bronze gate. As I walked down the steps with my mother, he spoke awkwardly yet urgently. Shen Tang, don't you dare regret this. Are you really going to find someone else? My mother paid him no further mind. She led me straight away, heading toward the distant end of the street. She didn't look back, so I didn't look back either. I thought that since father became the Grand Chancellor, he had become unreasonable. Clearly, he was the one who found a mistress, yet he accused mother of seeing someone else. Mother hasn't found anyone else. The butcher Wu had no idea that she planned to move out with me. Mother took me to an inn to drop off our bundles, then we still went to Butcher Wu's slaughterhouse. She said before leaving, she wanted to do some more work to earn some silver, to buy some porcelain and calligraphy that she could take to the other world. They would sell for a lot of money, so I could live a good life, she said. These ordinary things, in that world, they would be very valuable, called antiques. We had just arrived at the slaughterhouse when we saw Da Zhuang. His face dark and weathered. Today, he wasn't in a hurry to help hold down pigs or catch sheep. Instead, he stood at the main gate, gazing into the distance. In his hands, he held a box of pastries. He lifted the lid and took a quick glance inside. As if swallowing hard, he carefully closed the box again. Every time I see him, I feel happy, I called out to him, and when he looked up and saw me, he was overjoyed. He ran over in a few steps and handed the box to me, saying, "Here. I was just about to give this to you. Last night, when I went with father to deliver the meat, a steward from the official's household gave it to me. It's cloud slice cake. Just looking at it, you can tell it's fragrant and soft, and especially delicious." I asked him, "Have you tried it?" Da Zhuang's face flushed red. I'm a boy. I don't like eating these things. Just take it, since I'm giving it to you. He stuffed the box into my arms, then went to catch the sheep with his face still red. After finishing the evening's work, Butcher Wu saved the freshest and most tender cut of pork from the leg and made a large pot of 4-joy meatballs. He insisted on keeping mother and me for dinner. Mother felt uneasy about accepting, but seeing how I was practically drooling, she finally nodded in agreement. I was overjoyed with Da Zhuang. During the meal, Da Zhuang kept putting meatballs into my bowl. I ate so many that I started to hiccup. Butcher Wu grinned and poured me some water. The sky gradually darkened, and the bright moonlight shone through the window. Suddenly, I remembered that my father used to be a good cook too. His 4-joy meatballs were also quite delicious, almost as good as Butcher Wu's. He would also watch me eat with a silly smile, pouring me water and patting my back when I burped. He looks at mother just like Butcher Wu does. He always smiles foolishly and blushes. He clearly wants to look, but always just steals a glance and quickly looks away. He feels sorry for mother's hard work. My heart ached so much that I would secretly shed tears while reading books late at night. Back then, I would lean over the desk watching him, thinking he was just like a child. Later, father went to the capital to become an official, and our household gained many cooks and servants, both senior and junior. After that, father never stepped into the kitchen again. He no longer stared at me and mother, just grinned foolishly. If I burped after eating, he would say I was rude and improper. When mother went out to slaughter pigs, butcher sheep, or carry coffins, he said she was creating hardship for herself and making people laugh at her. He looked especially handsome and proud in his official uniform. But I only feel that since father became a high-ranking official, he no longer seems like father. Mother couldn't hold back any longer and said to Butcher Wu, "Brother Wu, after the new year passes, on the Lantern Festival, I will take Chang'e and leave, and I won't be coming back after that." The bowl in Butcher Wu's hand suddenly fell to the ground. Da Zhuang still had half a meatball in his mouth, and it took him a long moment to snap out of his shock. He grabbed my hand tightly, so anxious that tears even started falling. I don't want Chang'e to leave." Butcher Wu kept his head down, his eyes red, and for a long time, he couldn't speak. Just as my mother and I were about to leave, he suddenly stood up, pulled out a money pouch from under the cabinet, and stuffed it into my mother's hand. "There are over 30 taels of silver and some copper coins in here. Here, take this. Use it if you're in need." His face flushed red, filled with sorrow yet at a loss for what to do. It's not much, you don't have to pay it back." This must have been all his savings. He didn't even keep a single copper coin for himself. Mother's eyes reddened. I can't take this, Brother Wu, I'm not short of money. Butcher Wu was momentarily flustered with anxiety. He directly reached out and grabbed my mother's wrist, forcing the money pouch into her hand. Take it, I want you to have it. Before he could finish his words, the wooden door was violently slammed open. Father stood outside the door with several guards. Their faces ashen like demons from the underworld. He looked over, his gaze slowly lowered, like a knife. It fell on Butcher Wu's hand that was gripping my mother's wrist. Mother was startled by the door that was suddenly pushed open. Seeing father outside the door, her face instantly turned cold. She offered no explanation, only looked indifferently at the person outside the door. Father's eyes grew even more furious. Butcher Wu did not recognize father, although he usually had a bad temper. Commoners were particularly afraid of officials. He glanced at father and the guard's attire, feeling confused, and spoke in a gentle tone. Sir, have you come to the wrong place? Father cast him a disdainful glance. Then, looking at the bits of meat still clinging to the corner of my mouth, he said in a cold voice, You said you weren't hungry for the meatballs made at home, but you seem to be enjoying yourself eating here. You should listen to your mother. If your mother wants to find you a new father now, would you immediately call him Dad too? Since he became an official, he has spoken less, disdaining to say much about anything. But now, he has said so much all at once. I could tell that what he said wasn't good. I was so angry that I wanted to retort. Mother had already stepped forward and slapped father across the face. She said angrily, Fu Rongsha, you've gone too far. When father and mother argued most fiercely, he never once fought back. But today, he raised his hand and tightly grabbed mother's wrist, the veins on the back of his hand bulging. His face was tense as he ordered the guards behind him, whichever hand this butcher used to touch the Prime Minister's wife, cut it off. Several guards rushed forward and pinned Butcher Wu to the ground. Butcher Wu was stronger than Anyang, but he was outnumbered. As he struggled, his face flushed red. He finally understood something. The look of reverence on his face faded. Replaced by disgust and contempt, he was pinned to the ground, unable to get up, yet he still spat fiercely in his father's direction. Pa, some chancellor you are, your own wife has suffered so much hardship outside, and now she's being forced to leave with the child. Coward, I'm not afraid of you, go ahead and chop it off. It's just an arm. Father's eyes blazed with fury. You've got guts. Then why are you still standing there? Do it. Da Zhuang was so terrified his face turned pale. He rushed forward to stop the guards, but they shoved him to the ground. His head hit the wall, and blood flowed down. I had never seen father look like this. The man who used to read by the dim candlelight and shed tears for mother was nothing like the monster before me now. I rushed forward and desperately clung to the guard's hand as he raised his sword to strike. I was eager to speak. It seemed like I wanted to shout in anger, yet it also felt like I wanted to plead. But I couldn't utter a single word. Outside the window, the bright moonlight quietly slipped behind the clouds. Only the endless, pitch-black, eerie night remained. I felt immense fear and anger, along with countless other indescribable, inexplicable emotions. Within those strange, jumbled feelings, for the first time, I clearly realized that the father from before was truly gone. The person before me, wearing the same skin as my father, had turned into a fiend. The guards pinned down Butcher Wu's arm. Another guard easily pushed me aside, then raised his sword. Da Zhuang desperately scrambled to his feet and lunged forward again, crying out in terror. Father's voice grew extremely impatient as he abruptly drew his sword. Quit dawdling, I'll do it. Amidst the chaotic and heart-pounding clamor, suddenly, I heard an abrupt thud. I turned around and saw mother kneeling before father. Mother had never knelt before anyone, even during the hardest and most difficult times in the past. The local bully, seeing that my father was a scholar and physically weak, deliberately came to our door to bully him. They forced my mother to kneel and kowtow, but she never knelt. When the house was smashed to pieces, my father held my mother tightly and said, Atang, from now on I will make sure you live a good life. I will never let you be forced to kneel before anyone in this lifetime. And now, for the first time, mother was forced to kneel. Kneeling before father, the anger on her face was gone, replaced only by a wooden numbness, like a carved wooden doll from the marketplace. The sword in father's hand fell to the ground. A flicker of panic rose in his eyes, and his hands began to tremble. Perhaps at that moment, he too suddenly remembered the promise he had once made. Mother lifted her gaze to look at him, her voice grew very calm, so calm it was hollow. I really have nothing with him, let him go, and I will go back with you. Father fell silent, unable to speak. He looked at Mother, his hand hanging by his side slowly clenched into a fist, his eyes gradually turning red. After a long while, he suddenly picked up Mother in his arms. His face was tense and trembling as he turned and strode out. Without uttering a word, he mounted the horse, held Mother tightly in his arms, and rode away. The last time he rode a horse with Mother through the long street, it was many years ago, on the day we first entered the capital. At that time, he was just beginning to shine, and he felt that having Mother by his side was the proudest thing. I sat in the soft sedan chair with grandmother, lifting the curtain to watch Father and Mother on horseback. The spring in the capital is vibrant, yet it pales in comparison to the joy in Father's eyes. Even Mother, who is as bold and straightforward as a man, blushed. Later, Mother met the wives of other high-ranking officials, each as delicate and refined as pearls and jade. Fearing she might embarrass Father, she no longer wished to stroll the long streets with him. Later on, Father gradually began to say that the work she did was not respectable. Speaking of the aunt who lost her husband, although her mind has become impaired, she is still gentle and obedient. They began to quarrel. No one in the entire capital remembers anymore. When the current Prime Minister first arrived in the capital, he used to keep his wife by his side. I pulled my thoughts back and was taken home by the guards. Father took Mother back to their bedroom, closed the door, and wouldn't let me in. I was taken by my grandmother to sleep in another room. Late at night, however, I heard a loud commotion. Mother-in-law stood up and hurried out, and I immediately followed her. I saw the door to Mother's bedroom open, and Father stumbled out from inside. There was a long scar on his left cheek. Blood welled up and slowly trickled down his pale, cold neck. I stood outside the wide-open door. I saw Mother collapsed on the floor, her eyes bloodshot and her entire body trembling uncontrollably. In her hand, she clutched a hairpin tightly, its tip stained with blood. Father looked utterly devastated as he turned to face the person inside. His voice was filled with pain and confusion. "Atang, why, you used to love me." Mother's crimson eyes were fixed intently on him. He had just turned to look over. Mother had already raised the hairpin in her hand and pressed it fiercely against her own neck. Father laughed bitterly, and as he laughed, a single tear fell. This was the first time I had ever seen Father cry. He looked disheveled and finally left the courtyard. I rushed in anxiously, running so fast that I didn't even stop to pick up my shoe when it fell off. I ran to Mother and carefully hugged her, saying, "Mother, please put down the hairpin, you might get scratched." Mother slowly lowered her gaze, staring at me blankly. Her hand loosened, and the hairpin fell to the ground. She held me tightly, as if trying to press me into her very being. Did Mother frighten Changle? Did she frighten Changle? Good girl. Mother is fine. Mother is fine. I leaned against her chest, quietly holding back my tears. I just said earnestly, "Changle isn't afraid, as long as Mother is all right." Mother became less talkative. She used to angrily scold her aunt for pretending to be crazy and foolish, and reprimand Fu Yanga for being just like her mother at such a young age. She would never back down and would argue fiercely with her father. But now, she no longer likes to say anything. She just counts the days, saying she will take me back. Perhaps it started from that night when Father nearly chopped off Butcher Wu's hand. Mother suddenly began to understand that Father was now the Prime Minister. He was no longer the man he used to be. So, she stopped arguing with him. Father still came many times, wanting to enter Mother's bedchamber. Mother watched him coldly, and he left. In the blink of an eye, the new year passed, and it was the eve of the Lantern Festival. The Prime Minister's residence was already filled with joyous atmosphere. Fully prepared for Father and Aunt's grand wedding, Auntie had no family of her own. Father prepared the most generous betrothal gifts for her. He also prepared the most splendid dowry for her, grand enough to create a sensation throughout the capital with a procession stretching 10 miles. What he had once promised to Mother, he now fulfilled for Auntie. Mother packed our bags overnight and told me we would leave at dawn. She said we would bring porcelain and calligraphy to another world. She had already asked her mother-in-law to buy them, and carefully packed them all in our luggage. She was so happy and expectant, not a trace of reluctance left in her eyes. She held me, unusually chattering on and saying many things to me. Mother has no relatives in that world either. But bringing so many things back will be enough to exchange for a lot of money, and I definitely won't let Changle suffer any grievances. There are many wonderful things there that Changle has never seen before. And Mother will take you to see them all. I leaned against her, full of longing. But then, Father barged into the yard again. This time, Mother looked at him coldly, but he still refused to leave. He seemed to have been drinking, his face somewhat unclear. He staggered a bit as he climbed the steps. Arriving at the door of the room I shared with Mother, his expression was dazed, and he stared intently at Mother for a long time. He suddenly spoke up, "Atang. If I were to make it up to you with a wedding tomorrow, would you?" Mother seemed to have heard something terrifying and urgently cut him off. "I don't want to." Father's face froze, leaving only desolation in his eyes. His eyes turned red, though it was unclear whether from drinking too much or something else. After a long while, he nodded, forced a smile and said, all right, I was just joking with you. Jiao Jiao is almost ready to put on the wedding dress." He turned and walked out of the courtyard. When he reached the middle of the courtyard, he turned back to look at Mother. "Shentang, don't you dare make a scene tomorrow." Mother had already gotten up and closed the bedroom door. She didn't say another word, just lay down with me to sleep as if nothing had happened. The next day, the wedding procession from the Prime Minister's residence was ready to depart before dawn. As I walked out of the courtyard with Mother, in the distance, I saw Father dressed in a bright red wedding robe, his figure tall and slender. He strode out of the mansion and headed toward the tall horse waiting outside. I couldn't help but take a glance, but Mother didn't look back even once. The manor was in a state of chaos and bustle. Taking advantage of the confusion, she led me out through a side gate and into another world. Mother said we needed to find a secluded spot in the outskirts. Only then could she summon the system and open the passage back to the other world. Otherwise, if someone sees it, it might scare them. Mother does rough work like slaughtering pigs, butchering sheep, and carrying coffins, but her heart is the kindest. As we passed through the long street, we saw from afar Father's wedding procession. Father sat high on his horse, looking like a great general heading off to battle, so full of grandeur. Behind them stretched a long procession of carriages and horses, laden with betrothal gifts as abundant as a mountain. The entire capital was in an uproar, with the streets emptied as everyone flocked to see. People swarmed through every street and alley to catch a glimpse. Envious sighs filled the air, all saying the Prime Minister's new wife was the luckiest woman alive. A crowd of people passed by us, nearly knocking me over. Mother immediately reached out to shield me. The grand red carriage was about to disappear at the end of the long street. This time, Mother followed the direction of the crowd and cast a distant glance that way. But with just one glance, she averted her eyes. I thought it must be the strong winter wind. The wind blew into Mother's eyes, and that's why it seemed for a moment they turned red. I remembered many years ago, Mother held me in her arms at night and spoke with Father about their simple wedding. They were poor, and both were orphans without parents. There was almost no betrothal gift, no dowry. Father killed the only chicken they had at home. Mother bought a piece of meat after finishing her work at the slaughterhouse. Clenching her teeth, they invited the neighbors for a meal, and that was considered their wedding. That night, when Mother talked about those things, Father's eyes reddened, filled with guilt, and said, "Ah Tang, one day I will surely make up for you with a grand wedding. It must be a bridal procession stretching for 10 miles, with the streets emptied of people to watch." Father made many promises. He was a man of great learning, with the best memory, yet it seems I can't remember the words I said to Mother. The carriage quickly disappeared at the end of the long street. Mother held my hand tightly and continued on our way to the outskirts. Along the way, we stopped by to see Butcher Wu and Da Zhuang. Mother used all the newly accumulated points to exchange for 2 peace talismans. She gave them to Butcher Wu and Da Zhuang. She said the peace talismans couldn't bring them immense wealth, but as long as they kept them, they would never suffer from major illnesses or disasters. When we left, Butcher Wu's shoulders were trembling. Such a rugged man was almost on the verge of tears, but Da Zhuang stopped crying. He looked at me seriously and said, "No matter how far you go, Father and I will definitely find you. I want to say, Mother and I are going to another world. No matter what, they won't be able to find us." But I couldn't bear to say more, afraid of hurting his heart even further. I thought for a moment, then took off the hair tie from my head and gave it to him, saying, "Here, this is for you. Didn't you always stare at it before, saying you wanted to use it to weave grasshoppers?" The hair tie was a gift from my father, back then, when Dajwang asked for it. I beat him up several times, but now, that doesn't matter anymore. I went to the outskirts with Mother. Mother summoned the big guy and said everything was ready. It was as if a tear had opened in the sky, and I saw a blinding light. Mother held me tight and reached out toward the direction where the light was pouring. An invisible hand seemed to grow from within that light. It pulled me, toward that torn opening. I began to see, I think, the other world Mother had spoken of. Before my mother and I could be engulfed by the light, from not far away in the woods, the heavy, urgent sound of horse hooves suddenly rang out. In almost the blink of an eye, the tall horse was right in front of us. My father, dressed in bright red wedding robes, his eyes wide with fury, dismounted and rushed toward my mother and me. His eyes were filled with unbearable fear, his voice as if torn apart, a tang. "Don't go, don't go." Mother's face instantly darkened. In the past, her eyes were always full of love for father, and now, it was as if she had encountered the most terrifying of monsters. She frantically pulled me toward the torn opening, her voice trembling with urgency. "System, hurry up, close the passage." But just before the blinding light was about to fade away, father had already lunged forward like a madman, grabbing one of my wrists in a death grip. Mother couldn't bear to let go of me. She had promised to take me with her. The terror in father's eyes gradually transformed into reckless madness. "If you have the heart to, then go ahead and abandon Changle. I'm telling you, I will not treat her well. I will drive her out and leave her to wander the streets, and give all the kindness to Jiao Jiao and Fu Yanga." I thought, at this moment, father should feel remorseful, should apologize. Even so, mother definitely wouldn't soften her heart again. But father probably understood that too. Mother hadn't smiled for many days. And hadn't spoken to him for many days either. There wasn't a trace of concern left in her gaze when she looked at him. Father knew she no longer loved him. So, he used me to threaten mother, trying to force her to stay. Just like that night when he said he would chop off Butcher Wu's hand. Mother knelt down and obediently followed him back. I saw father's nearly distorted, determined gaze. He was convinced that I, more than Butcher Wu, would make mother more reluctant to leave. I found him terrifying. And I didn't want mother to stay. I used all my strength to slowly pull my hand out of mother's grasp. Mother looked at me with terror in her eyes. "Changle, don't let go. Mother will take you away. I promised you I would." That strong light was pulling her harder and harder, and she was about to lose her grip on me. My strength was small, but I gritted my teeth and slowly pulled my hand free. I was sad and scared, unable to imagine life without mother. But I still put on a determined look and said to mother, "Changle can't bear to part with father, nor with Dajwang and Sishi meatballs. Changle doesn't want to go to that unfamiliar place anymore. She wants to stay." "Mother, I'm sorry, but Changle doesn't want to leave anymore. I don't want to be a burden to mother. I don't want mother to remain trapped in the Prime Minister's residence, watching father bring home his new wife with a grand wedding procession stretching for miles. I don't want to see mother's tears fall, watching her press a hairpin against her own neck. My mother, who can slaughter pigs and sheep, is the bravest and most capable woman in this world. She shouldn't be trapped, she shouldn't be reduced to that." I used all my strength. Finally, I completely pulled my hand out of mother's palm. The dark opening in that intense light instantly snatched mother away. I saw mother's figure rapidly disappear, along with her heart-wrenching voice, "Changle, Changle." Father suddenly shook me off and lunged toward the cave entrance, but in the blink of an eye, the cave entrance had already vanished. Only the bare tree trunks in the deep winter forest and the desolate ground remained. Father, in a frenzied state, drew his long sword and slashed wildly through the air where mother had vanished. But that gap, as if torn open, could no longer reappear. Only a deathly silence remained all around. He gasped hoarsely, his throat choked with pain and unwillingness. He suddenly turned around and pulled me up from the ground. His legs gave way, and he knelt down, his large, trembling palm pressed firmly against my shoulder. "Have you lost your mind? You're crazy. You pushed your mother away. She is your mother, your own mother. How could you let her go?" I stared blankly in the direction where mother had disappeared. After a long, long time, I looked at father, whose eyes seemed to want to kill me. I thought he was really strange, staring at the blurry figure before me. I struggled to speak, confused. Father, you were the one who drove mother away. Father seems to have truly gone mad. He dragged me back to the Chancellor's residence and locked me in mother's bedroom. He never left my side, staring at me relentlessly. He said mother always loved me the most and would surely come to fetch me soon. As long as he waits by my side, he will surely wait for mother to return. When the time comes, he will have many words to explain to mother. Outside, the gongs and drums were clamorous, as the wedding procession brought the aunt home. The wedding matron urged at the door of the bedroom, calling father to go and perform the wedding ceremony. Father did not respond, nor did he rise. His eyes were only bloodshot. Fixed on my surroundings, it seemed as if mother would truly appear at any moment. He said that this time, if mother were to appear again, she would be willing to stay. No matter what you ask him to do, he will agree. I asked him, then, can father not marry auntie? Can he drive auntie and Fu Yanger away? That night, mother said exactly that to father, told them to get out. That night, father did not agree. This time, he remained silent for quite a while again. In the end, he still revealed a pained and helpless expression. Changle, your aunt's mind became troubled only after your uncle passed away. Both she and Yanger are truly pitiable, living alone outside. A widow and her orphan child are always bullied. Uncle is father's younger brother, so father has to take care of them, so it just can't be done. Then why did he say that no matter what mother wanted, he would agree to it? I find talking to him really boring and started to feel a bit impatient. The residence where my aunt lives outside has more than 10 guards alone. Everyone in the capital knows that the residence is rented by the Prime Minister, which is why no one dares to bully her. I can't go out, I can't leave. She simply turned her head to look out the window, ignoring him. I miss mother so much, and I don't know if she has safely reached the other world. I hope she is doing well and never has to come back. I quietly clenched my hand, holding back my tears. Father looked utterly desolate. He was usually a man of few words, but today he kept chattering non-stop by my ear, making my ears ache. Yanger is actually your aunt and uncle's child. Father lied because he wasn't feeling well, seeing so many rough men, exchanging flirtatious glances with your mother. Why can't she be like your aunt, quietly staying at home? Wouldn't it be better to be a respectable lady and learn music, chess, calligraphy, and painting? When I go out to socialize with people, which official doesn't need to save face? I was so annoyed by what I was hearing that I couldn't help but tilt my head and ask him, did mother suddenly start doing those disgraceful jobs with those uncles? When father first came to the capital and took mother for a stroll down the main street, wasn't she a butcher's wife? Mother has never changed. She has always been that rough person who slaughters pigs, butchers sheep, and carries coffins. Father's face froze for a moment, and for a long while, he couldn't speak. After a long time, he finally stammered incoherently. After all, it's different now. I am now the Chancellor. Which high-ranking official has a wife who is a butcher? I truly do not understand. What does being the Prime Minister matter? Just because father became the Prime Minister, does that mean he's no longer father, and mother is no longer mother? The capital is full of brocades and soft satins, fine silks and splendid robes, yet mother and I still prefer our simple cotton jackets. The coarse cloth jacket feels comfortable and unrestrictive. In the capital's jewelry shops, a single hairpin can sell for 20 taels of silver, yet mother still only likes that white jade hairpin, and I still think mother looks most beautiful wearing that hairpin. What does it matter to become the Prime Minister? What does it matter to enter the capital? In the past, our family lived happily. Why can't we live like that anymore? Father's face suddenly trembled, and a mist gradually rose in the depths of his eyes. Yes, so what if he became the Prime Minister? Maya Tang has always been like that, and I never minded her before. How could I? He was such a smooth talker. At this moment, however, his face was contorted in pain, and he stammered, unable to utter a single complete sentence. My mind was solely preoccupied with thoughts of mother. I no longer wanted to look at him. I turned my gaze back to the window. I wondered if that massive thing capable of transporting people to another world would ever appear again. Probably not anymore. It's okay. It's good that mother has left. Father stayed by my side the whole day, the matchmaker and maidservants came several times, urging him to go out to perform the wedding ceremony with his aunt and entertain the guests. They also mentioned that even the emperor had sent his personal eunuch to deliver congratulatory gifts. No matter what, father had to personally go and receive them to express his gratitude. Yet father seemed to have lost his soul, unwilling to leave no matter what they said. The matchmaker advised him again, saying he could even take me along. He still refused. He said it was too crowded and chaotic outside, and mother would surely take the chance to take me away. He said in despair that if I were taken away, mother would truly never come back, until the sky turned pitch black. The guests all left in disappointment. The maid came to deliver the message tactfully, saying that the eunuch sent by the emperor was not personally welcomed by father. When he left, he was very displeased, if it weren't for father being the powerful prime minister who now holds sway over the court. The emperor would have long ago punished him with a severe crime. The maid added that the bride is still in the bridal chamber, waiting for father to lift her veil. Her mind is not well, she's crying and making a scene, insisting on seeing her husband. Father still did not move, as if I had lost my soul. I stubbornly continued to guard him. The maid had no choice but to come in and light a candle. By the candlelight, I suddenly noticed the wound on my father's cheek, the one my mother had scratched with her hairpin many days ago. The scar was still there, and it even seemed more prominent now than when it had first been made. The Prime Minister's residence has the best golden wound ointment. It can even heal deep bone injuries without leaving a scar. Although father applies the medicine every day, there seems to be no sign of improvement at all. That long scar now even appears to be spreading. I find it strange. Yet it feels somewhat familiar. Before father went to the capital, there was already a scar on his left cheek. It happened when he fell down the mountain while chopping firewood, and got cut by something. Half of his face was nearly ruined, so terrifying that even children would cry upon seeing it. Later, when mother managed to gather enough travel expenses for him to go to the capital for the imperial examination, she heard that if one passed the imperial exam to become a high-ranking official in the capital, appearance also mattered. She was worried that father's face might hinder his future prospects, so she used a lot of points to exchange with the big guy for the restoration of father's appearance. And now, I look at the long scar on father's face. Suddenly, I feel that it doesn't seem like it was scratched by mother with a hairpin. Instead, it's more like the scar that once covered half of father's face is slowly reappearing. Suddenly, I recall what the big guy said that night. If all the points are cleared, everything the male lead has gained will also be lost. Outside the door, the maid rushed over again, her voice urgent and panicked. She said that the aunt, unable to wait for father to come, had started crying and making a scene uncontrollably. She also said that the aunt, claiming father was lost, was pulling Fu Yanga to crash into the wall and seek death. Father sent the maid away, saying he wouldn't go over, but after the maid left, he still couldn't sit still. Approaching midnight, he suddenly picked me up and hurried out. He was afraid that aunt, being not quite right in the head, might actually try to kill herself, so he rushed over with me in great haste. Stepping into the courtyard, I had just reached the doorway, when suddenly, I heard the violent sound of cups and saucers shattering inside. My aunt's voice was filled with uncontrollable rage, completely devoid of her usual foolishness. A bunch of useless fools. Tell him that Yanga and I are going to kill ourselves. How could he still not come? Let me make this clear. From now on, I am the one in charge of this Prime Minister's residence. If any of you dare to defy me openly while secretly obeying me, still thinking about that vulgar butcher woman, I will have every single one of you thrown out of this residence. Father's hand holding mine suddenly tightened. I saw the veins bulging at his temples, his face filled with utter shock, as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Yet I found it completely ordinary, with nothing to be surprised about at all. Mother had said countless times that aunt was feigning madness. She said that near the slaughterhouse and butcher shops, there were always fools trying to beg for a bite of meat. A real fool would never be like aunt. She had also said it countless times when arguing with father, but father never believed it. He said aunt was very pitiful. Aunt had been married to his sickly younger brother for less than 3 months when she lost her husband, and she was already with child. He said that his aunt's mind had been damaged by excessive grief. He said that his mother, who slaughtered pigs and sheep all day long, had grown cold-hearted and didn't know how to pity others, And now, the pitiful aunt he spoke of was just beyond the door, arrogantly scolding all the servants in the mansion. If it weren't for that fortune teller who told me back then that Fu Rongxue had a lucky star shining beside him, destined for great success in the future, why would I have married his dying brother just to get close to him? Today, I've achieved it, and I'm telling you all about it. Whoever has the guts, go ahead and tell Fu Rongxue, but from now on, don't expect to have even a single good day under my control. Even the usually timid and gentle Fu Yang'er spoke with an air of authority, saying, all of you, behave yourselves. From now on, my mother is in charge of this household. Hurry up and find a way to summon Fu Rongxue. Her shrill voice had not yet faded away. Father's face was terrifyingly dark as he suddenly kicked the door open. There were plenty of maids and guards outside the door and in the courtyard. But no one dared to make a sound, and no one would be confused about who the true master of this household was. Aunt, beside herself with glee, thought she had people guarding outside. The moment father arrived, someone would immediately inform her. The instant the door was kicked open, neither she nor Fu Yang'er had time to hide the ferocity and arrogance on their faces. Aunt was still holding mother's white jade hairpin, about to stick it into her own hair. She always loved to imitate mother's ways. Now she even wanted to take mother's worthless hairpin, but this time, father stepped forward abruptly. With eyes blazing crimson, he snatched the hairpin from her hand. Aunt was terrified, her face drained of all color. She stumbled and fell, landing heavily on the ground. Fu Yang'er, being young, thought things were still the same as before. Shedding tears, she pretended to be pitiful in front of her father again. Father, mother has fallen. Mother has been waiting for you. She hasn't even eaten yet. Father's icy cold gaze fell upon her. Who is your father? All of you, get out. His palm trembled as he tightly, yet carefully, clenched the white jade hairpin. His eyes were already bloodshot, and he spoke in a hoarse, broken voice. Drive them out. From now on, whether they live or die, they have nothing to do with the Prime Minister's residence. Aunt and Fu Yang'er were crying in fear and panic as they were dragged up by the guards and thrown out of the mansion. Aunt was still shouting unwillingly, we are already married, Fu Rongxue, we are married. I am already the Prime Minister's wife. You can't drive me away. Father sneered. When did you and I ever bow in marriage? Auntie suddenly snapped back to reality, remembering that father had never actually performed the wedding ceremony with her. Despair washed over her face as she was dragged out. Then she burst into mad, hysterical laughter. What does it matter if you drive me away? What does it matter if you drive me away? I've heard all about it. That butcher woman is gone, never coming back. Fu Rongxue, you were the one who trusted everything I said, the one who drove her away yourself. Ha ha ha. This time, she seemed to have truly gone mad. Even as she was dragged out of the Prime Minister's residence by the guards, she continued to scream shrilly. It wasn't until the guards raised their hands and knocked her and Fu Yang'er unconscious. Then they were thrown into the beggar's den outside the city. Father sat on the ground, his face deathly pale, staring blankly at the white jade hairpin in his palm. After a long while, he murmured in a daze, yes, it was I who didn't trust you. It was I who drove you away. A tang, I drove them away. I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Won't you come back? Mother is gone. Aunt and Fu Yang'er were also driven away. Father drank heavily every day. Shutting himself in his room and staring at me, he gradually became more absent-minded, saying my eyes and brows resembled mother's. Gradually, when drunk, he would stare at me blankly and call me a tang. I frowned and corrected him. I am not my mother, I am Changle. It was as if he couldn't hear my words. His eyes reddened again, brimming with intense sorrow and helplessness. I'm sorry, I've let you down. I made so many promises to you, said I would love and trust you forever. Even Changle knows that even though I've become the Prime Minister, I'm still your father, still your husband. How could I have forgotten? I'm sorry. As he spoke, tears fell again under the candlelight. Once he shed tears beneath the candlelit table, saying he felt he had let mother down. I felt sad along with him, and was also somewhat moved. Mother would also hold him with reddened eyes and say, Rongxue, right now is already very good. I am quite content, but now, I only find his tears truly ugly. He betrayed mother, he wronged mother, and because of that, I no longer have a mother either. What use is it? No matter how many tears he sheds, I turned my head away, no longer wanting to look at him, nor to have anything to do with him. The vast Prime Minister's residence, once always bustling with life, now only a lifeless silence remains. Father has even missed court sessions several times, and the Emperor has begun to grow increasingly resentful of him. The Emperor heard someone mention it again. On the day of my father's grand wedding, the Empress Dowager's personal maid also sent generous gifts. The Emperor was once a puppet ruler controlled by the Empress Dowager. Now, having finally broken free from her grasp, he began to stand on his own. He was a good emperor, appointing people based on their merits and treating others with kindness. However, due to his experiences in his youth, he was extremely suspicious. He was particularly wary of the Empress Dowager's faction. The Emperor began to suspect my father, creating a rift between them. But the father, who was once the most intelligent, yet he remained absent-minded all day long, never attempting to clear his own name. Moreover, half a month later in the imperial court, regarding the northern barbarians' invasion, he advised the emperor to send the brave and skilled General Wei to confront the enemy. A single sentence, like a lit match thrown into a haystack, it completely ignited the emperor's suspicion toward him. General Wei is the maternal nephew of the Empress Dowager. After the emperor took full control, he has been trying to reduce the military power in his hands. After that, the emperor never summoned father into the palace again. At court, he also almost never asked for father's opinion anymore. Father's actual authority and duties were gradually transferred to other officials by the emperor. I had no interest in these matters. I always miss mother, and I can't sleep through the night. In my dreams, I see that big, burly man. Mother's face emerges from behind him, reaching out her hand, saying she wants to take me home. All the grievances and unease I've felt for days suddenly pour out in that moment. Sobbing and choking, I reached out to grasp her hand, but suddenly, I jolted awake from the dream, only to see the desolate bedroom and the faint candlelight. Father was sleeping by my bedside. Hearing my cries, he quickly sat up and looked at me. When I saw him, I immediately bit my lip, trembling as I swallowed back the sound of my sobs. It felt like I hadn't spoken in many days. Father, his face ashen, asked me, "Changle, what's wrong?" I couldn't utter a single word. He cautiously asked me again, "Did you have a nightmare? Did you dream of mother?" I stared at him blankly, then shook my head frantically. I mustn't dream of mother. I mustn't let mother come back. If mother came back, she would be locked up by father, just like Changle. Father reached out his hand, as if wanting to touch my head. Terrified, I shrank back to the corner of the bed, trembling as I hugged myself tightly. Father's face twitched, filled with sorrow. "Are you, like your mother, unwilling to speak to me anymore? Once upon a time, Changle loved talking the most." I widened my eyes, watching him warily. Father stared at me for a long time, then suddenly raised his hands and covered his face. The scar on half of his face had already grown quite large. Such a broad palm could barely cover it all. He had returned to the appearance of the father he once was, but he would never again be the person he once was. After a long, long while, he finally released his hand. In the faint candlelight, he looked at me and said, "Changle, your father has made a mistake. I should bear the consequences myself. Right, I taught you that when you were little." Changle, the emperor began to grow wary of someone. There were naturally plenty of ways to find fault with him. Just over a month later, I heard people say, father had gotten into trouble and it seemed the emperor was going to throw him into prison. Perhaps, I will be exiled to a very, very distant place. Others also say that it might implicate my family, and I might end up in prison as well. Father's face grows more haggard by the day. Even his eye sockets have started to sink in. The scar on half of his face has already become too frightening to look at. That afternoon, father suddenly told me he was taking me to play in the countryside. I still didn't speak, obediently letting him lift me onto the horse. The further we went, the more familiar the road looked, until he brought me to the place where mother had disappeared. He set me down and said to me, "Daddy has some things to take care of. Can Changla wait here for Daddy?" I only wanted to go find mother and didn't want to wait for him, but I could no longer speak. Father crouched down in front of me and reached out to pat my head. Then, one by one, he carefully and meticulously fastened the buttons on my jacket. After a long while, he finally spoke again in a soft voice. "It's okay if we don't wait. That light, it comes here every day. Father comes every day and sees it. Mother has been waiting for Changle all along. I couldn't speak. Father held me tightly, his tears falling on my neck, feeling somewhat hot. He said, "I'm sorry." He released me, mounted his horse, and rode away. Where Mother had disappeared, that light truly began to flicker. Slowly, it stretched into a long line, like a cut opening up. I suddenly cried out, "Mother, Mother!" I truly saw Mother again. She reached out to me through the crack, her face filled with boundless joy. "Changle, come quickly to Mother." But this time, she was sitting in a wheelchair. I didn't have time to ask her. I threw myself into that crack, into Mother's embrace. This time, the light finally carried both Mother and me to another world. In the last glimpse of my fading sight, I saw Father again. He sat on horseback, gazing from afar toward the direction where Mother and I were, shedding a single tear. Then, he was taken away by many, many guards. When I looked over again, I could no longer see him. I followed Mother and fell into a world that seemed like it was from a myth. I saw candles larger than basins. Mother pressed on the wall, and it lit up. The light it emitted was as bright as the sun. Mother took out a small device and pressed on it. Later, someone came knocking at the door, delivering a great deal of food, a wide variety of flavors, even more delicious than what Butcher Wu makes. I asked Mother, "Mother, are you a fairy from heaven?" Mother hugged me and laughed, laughing so hard she couldn't straighten up. She sat in a wheelchair, unable to stand up. Mother said that before she went to find Father, she was already in a wheelchair. She made a deal with the big guy to redeem Father in exchange for her healthy legs. But now, she exchanged the reward for completing the redemption for bringing me here, so, she ended up back in the wheelchair again. I feel so guilty that I'm crying. Mother held me and said, "It's alright, I've been in a wheelchair for many years now, I'm used to it. I was an orphan since childhood, but now that I have Changle, that is the greatest blessing." I leaned against Mother's embrace, still feeling a bit sad. The big guy came to see Mother a few times. He said Father had been thrown into prison and then exiled to Chenju. Chenju happened to be not far from the small village where Father had once stayed. It was as if Father had truly returned to the way he was before he met Mother, just as disfigured, just as destitute. The big guy went on to say that after Aunt and Fu Yanga were driven away by Father, they were bullied in the beggar's den and even suffered violation. Aunt, in shame and despair, took her own life, and Fu Yanga became a discarded child on the streets, losing her sanity. Finally, it sighed and asked Mother, "Does the male lead truly know he was wrong, host? Are you considering going back to redeem him one more time?" Mother held me in her arms, sitting on the sofa drinking milk tea and watching TV. During the commercial break, she finally took a moment to glance at the big guy and said, "What did you say?" She used the antiques she brought back to buy a villa and luxury cars, taking me to eat delicious food every day. They hired another chef to make me 4 happiness meatballs. I've only been here for a little over 2 months and have gained almost 10 pounds. The big guy sighed. "Forget it, I won't send you to suffer that again." In late spring, Mother took me on a trip to the grasslands. The grasslands were vast, and we were so happy that we almost forgot to return home, staying for half a month. While traveling around, we met a dark-faced uncle. He said he herded cattle and sheep on the grasslands, leasing 10,000 acres of pastureland. Sometimes, I also do the work of slaughtering cattle and sheep. Mother has been a butcher for many years. We talked about the techniques of slaughtering cattle and sheep, and we hit it off right away. He invited us to his tent for a meal. We went over. A little boy, 3 or 4 years older than me, ran out of the tent. He was the man's son, and he gave me a grasshopper woven from rope. In the splendid spring light of the grassland, I suddenly noticed the small birthmark behind his ear, just like Dajwang. I suddenly burst into laughter. He followed my lead, letting out a simple, hearty laugh. The last time I saw the big guy was on minor New Year's Day. The uncle from the grasslands brought his son to the capital city for a visit. Mother invited them over for a meal, preparing braised pork meatballs and a hot pot. We all sat together by the window, enjoying a lively meal. Amid the steam rising from the hot pot, the uncle stole a glance at Mother, and his face flushed red in an instant. The boy sitting next to me helped me pick up meatballs, and I ate until I was hiccuping. Across the street from the window, electronic fireworks were being set off in the square. The fireworks bloomed, filling the air with joyous energy. My mother and I glanced out the window, only to see a massive figure in the sky. It said, "Father is dead." There was a plague in Tianju. Father disregarded his own safety and, together with other local officials, saved countless victims of the disaster. He then contracted the plague and passed away within just a few days. When he died, he still held tightly in his hand that old, worn white jade hairpin. That big fellow, only mother and I could see him. I withdrew my gaze, and in the hazy mist, met mother's momentarily reddened eyes. Uncle stood up again and poured a glass of wine for everyone. We raised our glasses to celebrate the little new year, wishing for peace year after year. In my daze, it seemed I saw father again under the candlelit table. I lay by the table keeping him company as he studied, wearing thin clothes even in the deep winter. He pulled me into his embrace, his eyes red as he held me tightly and said, "Someday, father will give the very best in this world to Changle and your mother." In the blink of an eye, he was gone. Through my tear-blurred vision, I raised my glass and clinked it with the person before me, saying, "May every year bring peace and safety." The end.